My name is Joaquin Cruz, and
My name is Brian Munoz.
we'll be doing our Speak Up, Speak Out project over the American Dream. Are y'all ready? I'll be delivering the first speech. Seemingly long ago, the United States of America was an unraveled champion of democracy for the world. It stood as the epoch of Western civilization. The progression of America seemed steadfast in its might, veering towards creating a more perfect union for all. Uniquely influenced by religious fervor, the country was romantic in its hope for a perfect future for its children. This was reflected by the culmination of human rights, freedom to practice religion, freedom from slavery, freedom from discrimination. The labor unions later on checked corporate greed and popularized the idea that things such as extra pay and working hours were rights that should be guaranteed and not a privilege. Education was also guaranteed that the freedom from ignorance was a necessity for living in the greatest place in the world. The American dream, as we know it, began in the 1920s, which brought the emergence of the consumerism. The creditor system of the economy encouraged lender. The buy now, pay later credit system allowed many Americans to have easy access to houses, cars, appliances, and other luxuries that were out of reach to many citizens 10 years before. Here we have the problem of the American dream, that it is infinite in its hope. Americans desired more and more. Not only did they want a mere house and necessities, they wanted mansions, golden cars, fancy clothes, pools, and the creditor system fooled them in the short term. When the Great Depression began, Americans were too late to realize that it had been too good to be true. Americans in the 1930s onward seemed stoic in comparison. They realized capitalism was not as great as it seemed and supported the use of a strong federal government to help them obtaining a better life rather than depending on the banks and businesses that had failed them before. From this era, we saw a great progression in America. We no longer wanted what was fancy, but what we really needed. FDR's New Deal program guaranteed work for the unemployed, Social Security and welfare for the impoverished, and the creation of national infrastructure that benefited all. In 1960s, Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency oversaw the greatest point in American liberalism with the passing of civil rights, legalization, ending segregation, Medicare helping retirees with health care, war on poverty programs permanently lowering national poverty, and the establishment of universal education for everyone. The American dream was not earnest in its idea, not a dream, but a reality. It was not a privilege, but a right. Since then, we have seemed to have suffered from some sort of amnesia in America as a whole. Foreigners may be true in believing that Americans are quick at forgetting. In the 1980s, neoconservatives manifested full power in the United States. Conservatives believed that the government had gone too far in its power, that social programs were handouts and not honest opportunities to become successful in living. The United States, to them, started to look much like the Soviet Union, with capitalism awaiting its destruction in America. Ronald Reagan had gone as far as to say that the government was the problem itself. This new era welcomed back businesses, referencing the work of Ayn Rand as almost holy scripture when praising capitalism. A pro-business government caused the economy to skyrocket. Corporations became monoliths of wealth. Those at the richest class had their status changed from millionaire to billionaire. With the economy booming, the big businesses were expected to share the profit with the middle class and the lower class, but such a thing never happened. The lower classes in America were led to starve in the economy as labor unions were killed off and no government assistance was to be found. People found work, but wages were too low to support families and became dependent on welfare to stay afloat. Education once promised liberation from ignorance and poverty, but the inflating prices of college admission doomed many students with debt and others without a chance to go at it all. In the same fashion as the 20s, consumerism became even more crazy. Americans mortgaged housing when market prices were at its cheapest. The debt of Americans had doubled in comparison to their earned wages. As before, the unchecked power of businesses and desired profit above everything, even if for the short term, such rapid growth could sustain itself no longer. So here we are. The Great Recession showed the hijacking of the American dream. Mortgages and debt were placed in the trust of bank and corporation, and all the while, most Americans did not earn profit at the rate of the richest, with the minimum wage barely rising in the last few years. The American dream no longer promised shelter, good work, and social aid. We desired again to become billionaires, the ones that earned all the profits at the expense of common Americans. The banks too big to fail collapsed and in turn ruined the United States. The problem is that these banks are too big to exist. In 2015, we cannot let this happen again. Yet we are forgetting already. Right now in America, companies are posting record profits while the poor are left to starve. Income inequality is at its highest rate since the 1920s, with 1% of Americans earning 99% of profit of all new businesses. As proud Americans, we cannot allow this to happen because this time we risk another Great Depression, one that may cause the demise of the United States. Perhaps that is a curse of the American dream, that is only a wish and desire to have more. We shouldn't strive to have more money because it'd be too good to be true. Some are quick to point out certain individuals who came from nothing and turned into everything. Citing people such as Andrew Carnegie, these are merely exceptions. The American dream, as we currently know it, is dead, and perhaps it is better that way. We must stop thinking like children and reason as adults. We must act to create a reality for all Americans, not just a portion of them. We must guarantee rights for all as we once did, that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people should operate as needed. A government of the people is not consisting of the rich, nor ruled by the powerful, nor does it serve a select few. To say government is the problem is to say people are the problem. A stronger government should not be taboo in today's society. We need ourselves to save one another, to work as a community to distribute the grand wealth of America. Perhaps we should practice the now radical idea of sharing. Share the money to ensure education, to ensure freedom from poverty, employment, housing, food, healthcare, and freedom. America hungers for sentimentalism. We shouldn't live with the hope that our children might be better off than we. We should live with the assurance that our children will be better off than us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian, and I will be giving the solution speech. The solution speech is the dialogue, but the results show that the concept of the American dream is no longer attainable, sustainable, and desirable for the population of the United States. Eldridge Cleaver said, quote, "I feel like I am a citizen of the American dream and that the revolution struggle of which I am a part of is a struggle against the American nightmare," end quote. I will present 8 major facts that will back up our arguments on this point of error. First, the American dream is now impossible to achieve in this country. So say nearly 6 in 10 people who responded to 2014's CNN Money's American Dream Poll, conducted by ORC International. They feel the dream, however they define it, is out of reach. Young adults, age 18 to 34, are most likely to feel that the dream is unattainable, with 63% saying it's impossible. Now, this age group has suffered in the wake of the Great Recession, finding it hard to get good jobs. Young Americans are a cause of great concern, and many respondents said that they were worried about the next generation's ability to prosper. Some 63% of all Americans said most children in the U.S. won't be better off than their parents. California economist Gregory Clark says that he has crunched the numbers and has concluded that the American dream is dead. Second, most people can't get ahead financially. If the American dream means a reasonable rate of income growth for working people, most people can't expect to achieve it. As Ben Castleman observes at 35A.com, the middle class hasn't seen its wage rise in 15 years. In fact, the percentage of middle class households in this nation is actually falling. Median household income has fallen since the financial crisis of 2008, while income for the wealthiest of Americans has actually risen. Thomas Edsall wrote in the New York Times that Not only has the wealthy of the very rich doubled since 2000, but corporate revenues are at record levels. Edsel also observed in 2013, uh, according to Goldman Sachs. Corporate profits rose 5 times faster than wages. Now, when your middle class does not gain in wages and the wealthy become more wealthy, the American dream is surely dead. Third, the stay-at-home parent is a thing of the past. The American dream for almost 80 years was able to buy a house, raise a family. Now now that ability has been taken away. There was a time when middle-class families could lead a comfortable lifestyle on one person's earnings. One person could work while the other stayed home with the kids. Those days are gone. As Elizabeth Warren and co-author Amelia Warren Tiagi documented in their 2003 book, The Two-Income Trap, the increasing number of two-earner families was matched by rising costs in a number of areas such as education, home costs, and transportation. These costs increased, and when combined with wage stagnation, means that families are struggling to make ends meet, and that neither parent has the luxury of staying home any longer. In fact, parenthood has become a financial risk. Warren and Tiagi write that, quote, having a child is now the single best predictor that a woman will end up in financial collapse, end quote. This book was written over a decade ago. Things are even worse today. Since that book, Elizabeth Warren has become a U.S. senator, and staying at home has become less common. Now, many times it takes two parents, plus sometimes the children working, just to make it. This means that teenagers have to grow up quickly in the world of work, or have to be influenced by some of the greatest evils of our society without benefits of parental help. Fourth, the rich are more debt-free. Others have no choice. While Americans are falling behind anyway, as their salary fails to keep up with their expenses, it becomes no wonder that debt is on the rise. As Joshua Friedman and Cheryl R. Schweniger observed in a paper for the New America Foundation, quote, American households have become dependent on debt to maintain their standard of living in the face of stagnant wages. This debt-dependent economy, as Friedman and Schweniger call it, has negative implications for the nation as a whole. But individual families are suffering too. Fifth, student debt is crushing a generation of non-wealthy Americans. This is a trap that was the key for the baby boom generation to get ahead. The GI Bill after World War II allowed many veterans to go to college, and the low tuition rates of the 60s and 70s allowed many students of the baby boom generation to attend college while working during the summer or even school to pay off their education. The mantra has always been education for every American who wants to get ahead. Now, however, we can just forget about that entirely. You have to be rich to get a college education. That is, unless you want to begin your career with a mountain of debt once you get out of college. Thereafter, you will discover that the gap between the spending and income is greatest for people under 25 years of age. Education, as Forbes columnist Steve Auckland put it in 2012, is, quote, the great equalizer, the facilitator of the American dream. But at that point, colleges had risen 500% since 1985, while the overall consumer price index rose by 115%. As the 2013 tuition at a private university was projected to cost nearly $130,000 on an average of 4 years. And that's not counting food, lodging, books, and other expenses. Public colleges and universities have long been viewed as the get-ahead option for all Americans, including the poorest among us. And that is surely not the case anymore. The University of California was once considered a national model of free, high-quality public education, but today tuition at UC Berkeley is $12,972 per year. It was tuition-free until Ronald Reagan became governor. Room and board is $14,400 400 other items is estimated to be 32,168. 6. Vacations aren't for the likes of us anymore. Many things have been written about the family vacation in the US. In fact, who couldn't help but laugh? The classic movie Family Vacation, starring Chevy Chase. The thought of a family vacation was just as American as apple pie. However, if you think you want a nice vacation, think again. According to 2012, to a 2012 American Express survey, Americans who are planning vacations can expect to spend an average of $1,180 per person. That's $4,720 for a family of 4. But then why worry for paying for that vacation if you're unemployed, you can't afford it? And even if you have a job, there's a good chance that you won't get the time off anyway. As the Center of Economic and Policy Research found in 2013, the United States is the only advanced economy in the world that does not require employers to offer paid vacations to their workers. The number of paid holidays and vacation days received by the American worker in this country would not meet the statutory minimum requirements in 19 other developed countries, according to the CEPR. 31% of workers in smaller businesses had no paid vacation days at all. The CEPR also found that 14% of employees at large corporations also received no paid vacation days. Overall, roughly 1 in 4 working Americans get no vacation time at all. Alan Grayson, who has introduced the Paid Vacation Act, correctly notes that the average working American now spends 76 hours more per year on the job than was the case in 1976. Now, between the pressure to work more hours and the cost of vacation, even people who do get vacation time, at least on paper, are hard pressed to take any time off. That's why 175 million vacation days go unclaimed each year. If there are any questions, now we will present our PowerPoint presentation. The death of the American dream. Now, our question today is the American dream alive and well for students today? Our product is a video conference event. A debate between Del Valle High School and Sweetwater High School was held for the purposes of this. And in doing so, we had an expert on the subject, Jerry Croft, as our judge to, of course, determine the winner of the competition. And in doing so, we believe that we were able to spread awareness of the subject of the American dream, given that we had an expert comment and judge. Now, that the American dream is currently, okay, we question whether or not the American dream is the same. And I ask, is it? In its birth, roughly around the 20s, the American dream, of course, would have been primarily for Caucasian individuals, given that civil rights have yet to take swing. And in doing so, we can see that innately, the American dream was not something that could be achieved by all. Today we ask, is the American dream really over? Now, I ask you to look at this picture closely. We'll see that the urban area pictured above is obviously not prospering, and that is a result of something that cannot be obtained.
The American dream, a house in the suburbs. I ask you, is this still available to all?
Now, the chart above clearly shows that people can no longer retire. This is obviously a result of individuals past 65 or at 65 who clearly are still trying to fund their expenses that normally that can't be paid off through Social Security and other government assisted programs. Now, the chart, as shown above, displays areas in which children are doing as well as their parents. The lighter the color, the more chances a child will do better than their parents. Sadly, it seems as if it's only obtainable to a select few. Among the areas displayed, we can see that at most, an individual can only do as well as their parents in roughly 46% of those specified areas, as opposed to the country in its entirety.
The solution. Things must change. The American dream has changed. We can no longer go by the dream of our forefathers. To be successful, we must change a great deal about our culture and society. We must begin by changing our educational system first. That concludes our PowerPoint.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much. Both of your speeches were very informative, and I can tell that you put a lot of work into the speeches and your presentation. So I appreciate your effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question was, I just want to make sure that I understand your proposed solution. Your solution is that we need to look at the education system, and so in doing that, you want to have debates between two high schools just to increase the dialogue and awareness about the problem?
Yes, that is the initial solution that we came to. The initial solution was, of course, to spread awareness, but as you've stated, we definitely must make improvements upon our post-educational system. Given that the price for education nowadays has increased 500%, it's something that isn't attainable by most people, and that in turn prevents any upward mobility. That's another idea of the American dream, is just sheer upward mobility and being able to make something of yourself.
Okay, great. Well, I think that that's definitely moving in the right direction in terms of identifying the solution. My advice to you would be that the amount of research and work that you put into understanding the problem and identifying the problem, I would try to match that effort and information in your solution as well. So when you go to think about how you want to implement the solution, try to put as much work as you did in understanding the problem as you do in then proposing the solution, so that your project seems more balanced. Because right now it does seem like there's a whole lot of information on the problem side, but the solution is lacking a little bit in information. So just moving forward, try to balance those two sides of your project out. But otherwise, great job.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be the last one?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Morning, we've had.
We will talk with you later then, okay? We sure do appreciate the opportunity we had this morning.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Cunningham. I will talk to you later.
Okay, bye.